So hey GBA fans, it's Xilicks here, and welcome back to week 5 of the D-League Fantasy. If you missed last week, make sure to go check it out, and if you're new, make sure to check out the week 1 video to get an explanation of what's going on here. For those of you that did play last week, let's get right into the recap. So taking a look at our last week tab, our top player was Xilicks with 60 points. Pretty good score. I believe most of his points came from defensive, as he had some pretty good picks there. This week, the defensive mons scored pretty high. There was maybe one or two offensive mons that had some pretty good scores, but as you will see with our all-star being defensive Xilicks, scoring 29 points, that's one of the higher scores we've had in a while. I don't think it beats the Amoongus from Season 7, but it is a very high score. It did take quite a lot of super effective hits between bug moves, dark moves, and also quite a lot of neutral hits from like volt switches and resisted hits from focus blast, so racked up quite a lot of points there. Moving on to our coach of the week from last week, we have Donaki in the Rose Radenborg. They had a little bit of a Suicune sweep, but the Mega Absol did come in at the end to kind of wrap things up, getting the final KO. And Suicune, I believe, was the top offensive mon from last week because of that. So let's take a look at the fan document. So as you guys know, this is the fan doc. It is linked down below in the description. You can find all GBA related stats for this season, and you can even look at the older fan documents to see stats from previous seasons. So if you want to see the scores from this week, go over to the week 4 page, and if you'd like to see your personal score, go to the fantasy week 4 page. So looking at all the different coaches this week and their scores, here you can see them. So depending on which coach you picked, this is how many points you get over in the total section. Looking at our all-star, as we did talk about before, it was Xilicks, getting 34 points if you properly picked it as your all-star. Looking at our top 3 players, we have a Xilicks, as we mentioned, getting quite a lot of defensive points. We have Darth Vader getting not a lot of points in the usual categories, but did properly pick the All-Star, propelling him to a score of 57. And then FH Archer getting also quite a lot of defensive points, leaving him with 39 points. Then looking at our offensive and defensive rankings, first on offense, we have Suicune with 17, Mega Scizor with 13, and the Xilicks with 12. Looking at defensive, we have Xilicks with 29, Umbreon with 20, and Suicune with 15. Not quite an entirely Habsol dominated page, but pretty close. You know, they obviously 2 weeks in a row have been scoring a lot of points defensively, which is interesting to see. So obviously you can scroll through for yourself and see what every single mon scored. And then let's move over to the U Pick 6. Alright, so looking at our Pick 6 for this upcoming week, not too many mons that I'm like super certain about, so I did do kind of a strategy that I did quite a bit in Season 7, where I'd pick a mon offensively, and then I'd pick a mon that is going to be on the defensive side of that same team. So taking a look at our first offensive pick, I have the Mega Absol from the Rose Radenborg. They are playing the Montreal Habsols this week, and the main reason I picked Absol is because we've seen the Habsols. That's going to get confusing. We'll just say Aster. We've seen Aster's team run things like the Xilicks Umbreon, which Mega Absol is able to hit both sides of that with quite a lot of damage, especially if it's able to set up, say, a Swords Dance or whatever it may be. This thing can be run physical or special. We've seen primarily physical, but special is still an option, so Aster won't have such a free pick when it comes to what EVs he's putting into his Umbreon. You know, he can't just run like max defense or max special defense because of this Absol. Not only that, but there are other things on Aster's team that this Absol can do quite a lot of damage to, especially with priority through Sucker Punch, just knockoff for utility points, and whatever else it may be able to do to things like, I don't know, the Metagross, the Piloswine. It does get checked by a couple things, but, you know, Donaki does have other mons on his team that could deal with some of those defensive mons. Moving on to my next offensive pick, I have Tapu Koko from the Texas Rangers, currently one of the kill leaders. I believe it's tied for first place. Tapu Koko is, well, it has been a monster throughout the season. We've seen it get so many kills, whether it's, you know, in a row or just revenge kills, whatever it may be. And this week I don't find much of an exception to that, as the Memphis Grizzlies don't have too many checks to Tapu Koko. If anything, I do believe they are going to have to get creative with some berries, or just play really well, like pivoting between, say, Melodic and Jolteon, for example. Don't really know how that's going to play out, but this Koko can definitely be a huge threat, especially now that they have the Togekiss as well, which is just another mon that's weak to those electric stabs. It's going to be a rough battle, I think, but Tapu Koko may be able to get some points in there. Next up, I have Nihilego from the LA Clefable. I like Nihilego because they're going up against the Toronto Staraptors. Now, while the Staraptors do have quite a lot of ways of dealing with this, they also have quite a lot of mons that take damage from this. I do believe they're going to have to run either something Assault Vest or some berries, just to be able to take hits from this thing, because given the opportunity, of course, this Nihilego can really just come in and do damage. I mean, it's 2 stabs hit very hard, and depending on the set, it may be able to get up some beast boosts and potentially sweep. Who knows, we'll have to see in the battle. Moving on to our defensive picks. First up, I have Mega Blastoise. Now, as I mentioned before, this Mega Absol does have a few defensive checks. Mega Blastoise is one of them, not entirely, because if the Absol is able to set up, say, Swords Dances, or if it's run, you know, especially with Calm Mind even, which we have seen in week 1, the Absol would be able to deal with this Blastoise, but the Blastoise does stop some other mons on the Rosenraid board team. For example, the Magearna isn't going to be doing a crazy amount of damage with Thunderbolt unless it gets a Soul Heart boost, so it could be, you know, maybe a potential starting switch into Magearna, depending on the set, of course. Suicune as well, Darmanitan, Mega Blastoise can take hits from them, and as long as it gets a couple resisted or super effective hits, then it will do its job, in my opinion, for this defensive pick. Next up, I have Landers T. So as mentioned before, the Memphis Grizzlies are going up against the Texas Rangers, and we have spoken about this previously, but most of the Texas Rangers offense is physical. They do have some special threats in there, but the majority of the mons that we have seen the Rangers bring are physical. Now, Landers T does deal with physical threats pretty well with the Intimidate. This is not the only Intimidator on the Grizzlies team, so there is a little bit of double Intimidate action, especially because Landers can go for U-turns into the second Intimidator. So maybe we'll see Landers do well. This thing can definitely get bopped by like a Tapu Koko, HP Ice, even Hydreigon. You know, it can get destroyed, but at the same time, you know, it could switch into like a Hawlucha or a Mega Scizor, get the Intimidate, maybe get out of there right away. Who knows? As long as it gets hit a couple times, same thing with the Blastoise, it is getting points, and that's all that matters in fantasy. Moving on to my third and final defensive pick this week, I have Tapu Fini from the Durham Jardigons, and they're going up against the Norwich Skitty. Now, Fini I'm kind of 50-50 with, just because, you know, it can be threatened by things like the Evire. The Mega Lopunny can do quite a lot of damage to it, but I really like the Fini because it can stop things like the Floatzel, it can stop the Latias, it can stop the Volcarona, you know, it can haze away the Quiver Dance boosts. So I do like Tapu Fini. I'm not entirely sold on it, but I do think it can do decently well, at the very least. And, you know, we've seen it usually run defensively by the Durham Jardigons, so I don't think that this week will be an exception, and hopefully it'll be able to pick up some points. Alright, so that is going to be it for my You Pick 6. Remember, these are just my picks. If you'd like to make your own, go down in the description and fill out the form. You don't have to copy any of my picks, or you can copy all of them if you choose. Entirely up to you. Alright, so wrapping things up with the outro, as mentioned previously, make sure to fill out that form in the description if you'd like to play for yourself, and check out all of the links to the coaches and whatnot. You will definitely want to join the fan Discord, also linked down below, as that's where, you know, you can talk with the coaches, the analysts, different fans alike. You can talk about fantasy, you can talk about really anything. There are tons of different text channels where you can have conversations with different fans, so make sure to go check it out. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, thanks, bye.